we have taken up a very important topic, which is global business. Like any other thing, global business is going to be different in the post-COVID time because the whole world is changing. It is thinking about different ways of engaging with each other in the post-COVID era, especially in a state like Kerala. Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, especially in a state like Kerala, which is facing future frequent disruptions, be it due to epidemics, due to natural calamities like floods. So we are getting used to this new way of way world is working. So we are also trying to adapt to that new world. So we will be very eager to know about how global skills will be evolving, how what kind of skills would be needed to have consultancy in the global business field. So we are very happy to have a very eminent person, a very a highly patriotic third generation British Indian with us who has better knowledge about India more than anyone of us here, and he is highly devoted to the Indian cause. That's why he is up here in the morning hour of UK 6:30 a.m. He is up waiting for us. So we're very happy to have Mr. Amarjit Singh, CEO of India Business Group in London, and also the Special Advisor and Co-Director of the India Center for Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development, housed in the University of Southampton. Mr. Amarjit Singh has got a lot of ideas about skill development, getting connected with India, getting connected with institutions who are progressive in trade between UK and India. And he's also a very influential person when it comes to the UK and Indian governments, a person who has got very good connections with the who is who in UK government as well as the Indian government. Sir, we are very happy to have you here. And I will also like to welcome Prof.Sabu Padmadas. He is our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here, always available at a phone call. He's the professor of Demography and Global Health, who is also an associate dean of international affairs, a person who is committed to the cause of furthering such kind of engagements. So I would like to hand over the microphone to Sabu. Sabu, please tell us more about Mr. Amarjit Singh and as to how this can translate into a future engagement. And we would like to hear more about this from Mr. Amarjit. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jaikiran. Namaskaram. Good morning, everyone. It's always been a great pleasure to work with you, ASAP, and also the Department of Higher Education team. I must congratulate the team for putting up an excellent series of webinars. I think these are really, truly transformative in nature in offering new knowledge and practical orientation to skill development. So I think there are indeed unique opportunities. And in fact, COVID-19 has in fact opened up these opportunities through virtual platforms. So I think we are really grateful to you, to the government of Kerala for the invitation. And our speaker and a very good colleague and a very good friend of ours is Mr. Amarjit Singh, is the Chief Executive Officer of the India Business Group in London. And also he also wears another hat as the Special Advisor and Co-Director for Business and Strategy at the India Center for Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development at the University of Southampton. So we work together very closely on many things. But he advises corporate companies, large and medium scale enterprises, as well as startups and the UK government, particularly on UK-India bilateral trade and investment. So in fact, he is the India advisor to the number 10 Downing Street. I mean, when it concerns with bilateral trade and investment between our countries, between these two countries. He has a specialization in law. He is a lawyer by profession, and with a very deeper focus on international relations. Consults on a wide range of issues. For example, let's say, for instance, business strategy, market research, international business development, and of course, when it comes to due diligence and contractual matters. And also as a nationally recognized expert in Indian business affairs, he was actually one of the distinguished lawyers to accompany the former Prime Minister, Mr. David Cameron, on his historical trade delegation, the first ever trade delegation to India and this happened in 2013. So I think, with Mr. Amarjit on board, we can expect more of these, kind of exchanges between these two countries. So thank you, Amarjit ji, for just coming in. I mean, I'll hand over the floor to you, and at the end, I'll just add a few reflections from my side on the government and the kind of public sector consultancies. Thank you. Over to you, Amarjit.
So thank you so much, Dr. Jaikiran ji and Professor Padmadas, for your very warm and indeed welcoming remarks. So if I might commence with Namaskaram, Kerala, it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you this morning for such an exciting, timely, and hopefully invigorating session. And if I may also extend my gratitude to the entire government officials of the state of Kerala, the academic colleagues, the team working in the background to support this exciting program, and a very special hello and good morning to the young, bright minds, the students, the graduates, and the next generation of global leaders and entrepreneurs sat in the audience. So essentially, I see today's interaction as the first in a very long series of fruitful collaborations with the program, the higher education bodies within the state, but also with the government and with the industry. And post-COVID-19, we expect the UK and India to come even closer together as strategic partners, as a force for good in the world. So in this regard, I anticipate developing an even deeper working relationship with colleagues, with stakeholders in Kerala, within the higher education and skilling areas and sectors, but also I would say more widely to facilitate and support bilateral business, trade, and investment relations between the UK and India, with a specific focus on the state of Kerala and looking at tourism and deepening people-to-people links and engagements between the UK and India. So as you've heard a little bit about the India Business Group, I'll just add a few more comments to that, just to broaden the picture. So India Business Group is essentially a London headquartered trade and investment consultancy. We provide market research, market entry, and business advisory services to organizations seeking to go global in the UK, European, India corridors. And as Professor Padmadas outlined, we have a very broad range of clients, from startups to PLCs, to universities, to sporting entities, to government departments. And we essentially work with a broad range of partners in India and the UK. So to give you some examples, in India, we work very closely with Invest India, which is the government's, national government's trade and investment promotion agency. We work with Niti Aayog, and in fact, Professor Padmadas and I have had several interactions with Mr. Amitabh Kant on key strategic issues between the two countries. And from an industry perspective, we work very closely with the FICCI and CII networks across the country. And naturally, given the work we do within this corridor, we work closely with the national network of British embassies and high commissions dotted across India. So with those opening remarks, I'll ask for my slide to be presented now, the presentation slide, and we'll start the discussion, which we are very much hoping will be as interactive as possible. So as you'll see, and you've heard, global business skills in a post-COVID-19 era. And there are three topics that I will address in this discussion. So to start with, I'll provide a very brief overview of business consultancy. So consultants come in all sizes, shapes, and sectors, and they provide a very wide range of services and solutions to real life problems, real issues facing industry, the public sector, the private sector. Consultants can range from large global firms. So, for example, the big four, EY, KPMG, Deloitte, all have consulting arms who provide business assurance and advisory services, strategic advice. Strategy consulting firms like Bain, McKinsey, Boston Consulting. And then you can go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, where you have niche boutique firms, much smaller firms with less than even 50 consultants within the team. And they could typically be advising on one sector or one vertical. So, for example, in this day and age, you can have HR consultants, PR consultants, sub-strand technology consultants providing a very niche and specialist service where they have the expertise, they have the edge, they have that additional value add. So a business may say, rather than do a lateral hire or to take on an employee, we'll bring in a consultant for a specific project or a specific challenge within the entity. So as you've heard in my area of consultancy within the India Business Group, we work with organizations breaking into new markets. And so the typical tasks that I and the IBG team work on could be things like conducting market entry reports, feasibility studies, advising on structures and entry options, location analysis, looking at joint venture collaborations, so how to structure them, how to present them. And a lot of our work entails accompanying clients on market visits to India because it's very complex. And also the reverse, if Indian entities want to come to the UK, we help with the full range of services. So to give you an example, India Business Group currently has the India mandate for World Snooker, who are based in the UK. And for the snooker enthusiasts amongst the audience, you will know that snooker was invented in India 145 years ago this year in Jabalpur. And we are providing strategic advisory services to World Snooker Limited, which is the parent company based here in the UK. And we're advising them on how to grow their fans, their following, their participants, their partners, their training academies in India. And eventually they have an ambition to form a flagship training academy in one of the smart cities in India. So within this project, you've probably guessed the type of work we're doing is strategy advice, looking at location analysis, and providing general strategic support from an implementation and evaluation perspective. So you'll all be aware the current COVID-19 pandemic is having an adverse impact on all sectors, on all verticals, on all countries. And the threat is the same globally. So even for us business consultants, there was very little time to plan or prepare for this major crisis. And we were essentially thrown in the deep end with our clients and partners and contacts from around the world. So as we have seen, the lockdown has accelerated certain changes, and remote working from home has obviously become the new normal of doing business. And there's been a phenomenal increase on technology tools and platforms as a means for communication, but also for doing business and for continuity. And what we've seen in the last couple of months are global CEOs conducting urgent crash courses on video conferencing and how to use these various tools, including myself, I should add. So that was just a very brief overview of consultants. If we may now move on to topic 2, the essentials for starting a consultancy business. It's widely accepted that the COVID-19 crisis will change the world of work forever, and it will introduce new efficiencies, new business models, new ways of working and connecting with clients, with customers, with supply chains. It could well be the case that the 9 to 5 typical office routine could disappear altogether. So this change to the future of work landscape is equally exciting and could present fresh opportunities to young entrepreneurs to set up their own businesses, their own ventures, as employment rates may lower, but equally with new models, there may be more opportunities for independent consultants or freelancers. So in this context, what are the essentials to consider when setting up, and what would give you the best prospects of success? Well, firstly, I would say identify a niche area or specific knowledge gap where you can leverage your existing qualifications, your skills, your industry experience, or your track record. So how can you merge that into responding to a real life challenge or problem that you can see now, or that is likely to emerge post-COVID, post the lockdown when people are back? Conduct vigorous market research to validate your ideas and assumptions. And even now, you can investigate in the context of this crisis, which sectors are booming and which ones are suffering as a result of the lockdown. So for example, IT-enabled services, medical equipment manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, e-commerce, we can see that these are in huge demand at the moment. So try and think ahead of what will be in most demand post-COVID and focus on that abstract tomorrow's world, which everyone is talking about. You must form a detailed business plan at the start, and this should include all the usual components. So funding, marketing, identifying your customer segmentation, who is your audience. Now, if you're looking at the world as a destination, are there any particular markets that you identify with based on your research as hotspots or based on supply and demand where your solution could accelerate and fast track with the audience? And I would also say that in the current era, look at competitive pricing packages for your business and your ventures. So be creative, think of new models, and consultants typically charge in a variety of ways. They can charge based on an hourly rate of services and output. They can charge on a daily rate. They can charge on a project basis, for example, a retainer. They can even come up with formulas where there's a success-based element. So for example, if there's a commission share, it all really depends on what is the assignment, who is the client, what are the deliverables, what is the likely prospect of success for that project. You must carefully consider the legal structure for the business and for the venture. And so you'll be aware that there's a number of different options ranging from a sole trader to a partnership through to a private limited company. So you must evaluate carefully the regulatory requirements for your particular vertical, for your sector, what certifications may be required, what further qualifications may be required, what registrations may be required with trade bodies. And as with any business venture, whether domestic or global, you must take tax compliance advice on how to structure something, how it will be tax efficient for the business, how not only looking at the short term, you are factoring in a growth of the business domestically and in global markets. And finally, for setting up a consulting business, my top tip would be to focus on quick wins and low-hanging fruit to get your first clients and customers. So how might you do that? Well, on the one hand, you could reach out to your existing network of contacts and speak to them. We all have community, business, former employees, a range of contacts within our basket. Use word of mouth to kind of promote your new offering and get feedback. And the chances are that as these people will already be well known to you, the trust comfort factor will be present. But also looking from a post-COVID perspective, you must embrace digital marketing and social media platforms for the simple reason that with this coronavirus, the type and quantity of face-to-face activities have obviously been reduced. And even post-lockdown, there is likely to be limited physical networking events where in the traditional manner, you would go to a conference or to a seminar or to a business summit and meet contacts and exchange physical cards. So you'll have to adapt and factor that into your business. So on that note, I'd like to come on to the final topic, the key skills required for international consultancy, particularly against the backdrop of the current crisis we are all witnessing. So what skills will be in high demand when employers hire talent post-COVID? Or indeed, what skills will be at the forefront for those of you entrepreneurs who decide to set up your own venture, either now or post-COVID? So I'll start with adaptability and resilience, which are really the need of the hour. And the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, only last week put a blog up on LinkedIn in which he described this as the need of the hour, especially to businesses and to the next generation of entrepreneurs. So how can you adjust, adapt, respond to rapidly changing working conditions and environments? So think, how can you still perform, remain productive, remain effective when everything you've ever done in the normal zone has changed? Now, a classic example of this here in the UK are certain manufacturers of cars, goods, and equipment. So over the last few weeks, we've seen Rolls-Royce, JCB, and Dyson's adapt their typical production lines rapidly to provide ventilators and other medical equipment to the local national health services in the help to combat COVID-19. And if you think about it, what would normally be a design, a concept, a prototype starting in the R&D lab, they actually went from design to production simply in a matter of days, which is quite remarkable. Critical thinking is very important to consultants, especially if you're looking at different geographies and different markets, because the task of a consultant is really to assemble, evaluate data, and provide the best options and the best outcomes to clients based on their business mission, based on their goals. I mean, one issue which I'll touch upon, and we are starting to see a little bit of this, is, and with regret, we are seeing some blame culture emerging about coronavirus, its origins, its real cause. And a consequence of that is that we may see a spike in fake news stories and in data which may not be authentic. So this is again where your critical thinking skills will really be important to evaluate the source of the data, to benchmark it, to go deeper than just what a headline says. And then you, as a consultant, as a business advisor, as a strategic advisor, will need to decide what is credible and worthy and trusted of being presented in the client report or the market document you're submitting to your client. Next, I would say good organizational skills. Now, these will be absolutely critical for the simple reason that remote working and working from home is likely to increase because employers will say, well, we can do away with hiring large towery offices and paying huge rents and fees. So what does that mean for you as an entrepreneur or a consultant? Well, you will have more control over your working schedule. And equally, working from home, as some of us may have seen, presents its own challenges in terms of where is that balance between family tasks? Have you got a separate designated office, a workspace? So you'll need to be able to work well under pressure, work according to new models, be organized, potentially multitask. And if the business has a global dimension to it, then you will also have to factor in something which Professor Padmadas and I are doing now, working in different time zones and managing that from an organizational perspective. Creativity and innovation. Well, it could be argued that that's always been important to business, right from the outset. Even when we go back to my essentials, I was referring to market research and data scanning. But actually, the challenge is a little different now because COVID-19 has been the biggest disruption that we have all seen in our lifetimes. The scenario where businesses bounce back or attempt to recover post-lockdown, the mindset will need to be different. So you'll need to think far more creatively on new service lines, new products, new ways of engaging with your customers, new ways of communicating with your customers. So what might be that new normal of doing business? And that will require you more so than ever before to think outside of the box. So finally, I would say in terms of the top skills and traits in the current scenario, the final one I would say is cultural awareness and emotional intelligence. And the reason for this is very simple. In these globally challenging times, we must remember that coronavirus is first and foremost a health crisis. It's having a detrimental toll on families, communities, countries, well-being of people. And so as a business leader, going forward, you will need to be able to demonstrate empathy, compassion, understanding, solidarity, and having the skill to be aware of the emotions of your clients, of your colleagues, of your staff, of your fellow business leaders will be very important. And you'll need to nurture those skills so that that wider way of engaging with colleagues is something that becomes more known to you, and that despite these turbulent times, you are able to adopt a very calm and methodical approach to your work. That will be very important. So I'm also conscious of time. In closing, I would like to suggest that if you are not already doing so, please do utilize and leverage this lockdown time to improve your skills, to refresh new knowledge, gain new insights, become more immersed in current global affairs, so that once we do emerge from the post-lockdown and post-COVID, you become even more valuable and attractive to prospective employers, and equally to prospective clients and customers. So with those closing remarks, I would like to hand over to Professor Padmadas to give a little bit of a perspective of consulting in the sense of the public sector, government side, and to add his esteemed reflections. And then I look forward to continuing this dialogue and discussion with you through the Q&A phase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amarjit ji, I think, for sharing those very invaluable observations. I think, it reflects your experience working in the field. I think what I will do is that I will take the next few minutes, probably 6 to 8 minutes, to share my reflections and experience working with the government and non-governmental agencies, particularly the international developmental agencies, different country governments, and also United Nations, for instance. Many agencies within the United Nations. For example, I've had experience with the United Nations Population Fund, the Children's Emergency Fund, United Nations Development Program, and World Health Organization. So let me also begin by first clearing up some cloud or misunderstanding or misperceptions, because we always think that social, economic, and business development is the responsibility of government or government systems. That's always that's a wrong perception. In other words, it's not true. In fact, most of these organizations, most of the governments need solid evidence and deep analysis of relevant data for policy decisions and program management. Because for any policy formulation, for any program development, they need a good amount of data and so on. So what they do is that they commission these work, and by commissioning, they not only benefit in terms of engaging or bringing in relevant experts to address the problem, also they save considerable amount of time and the real cost. So, for instance, our Prime Minister, for example, and the Chief Ministers and the Ministers, as we see today in the COVID environment, and opposition leaders, civil servants, civil service officers, like from district collectors to principal secretaries, have very limited time. They don't have time to, they have time to deal with other things. They don't have enough time to really problem solving or, designing interventions and so on. So what they need is actually, they need your skills and expertise. So I would say that anyone with a university degree, whether it is in the social sciences, humanities, history, arts, business, education, engineering, you name it, medicine or law, and one with some good level of understanding of the subject, of the discipline, of a particular sector, can undertake consultancies. Because across the globe, we already have a strong pool of consultants working in various sectors, and that also includes Kerala, including one of my very dear friends in Kerala who works for the WHO, Mr. Dilip, Dr. Dilip, T.R. Dilip, who has been with various organizations. He was the national consultant for the Health Expenditure Commission in India and so on. So there are fundamental questions. How do you engage, or how can you engage in a consultancy for government? And what kind of skills you need? In fact, Amarjit ji has already provided a very very useful, kind of illustration of the different type of skills you need. And it also depends on the projects. For example, the projects could vary, for example, wide-ranging from evaluation research, because government wants to know, for instance, what is the effect, because they have invested lots of money into it. They want an independent organization or an independent agency to come forward and do the evaluation. For example, let's say, for instance, Kudumbashree project. I mean, so there have been, a number of evaluations looking at the effectiveness of those kind of, the programs. So the projects could vary from strengthening health infrastructure, education and curriculum development, civil amenities, local community development, public health interventions. Like currently now, most countries and most, including particularly the Kerala government, is really working on effective health interventions. I mean, pulling in experts actually to get the optimal kind of benefit. So there could also be sort of consultancies on cost-benefit analysis and other development projects. These days, consultancy as a startup, I think what I understand from Amarjit ji, is actually mushrooming across the world. And I think just to clearly, just to give you a very quick snapshot of what kind of skills. I mean, in fact, we have actually talked about a lot of skills, but there are different levels. Some are at the basic entry startup level. Then you move to what is known as kind of intermediate level, and then you have what is known as the advanced professional level. So these are different levels at which people operate, or the consultants, the consulting agencies, organizations operate. But perhaps a fundamental and most essential skill that you need is your ability to collect and synthesize data, information. A lot of data and a lot of records you need to really kind of evaluate and understand. So which we call as research. So research skills are very, very important. And that also includes, like, for instance, what Amarjit ji mentioned regarding, the in terms of really doing market research, understanding how, for example, I mean, these consultancies often come in very short notice. So, for example, they would say that within 30 days, you'll have to really submit a proposal or a tender document, and so you'll have to really be prepared and so on. But I think at the basic entry startup level, it depends upon how proactive you are, how connected you are. For instance, today, I think some of you may really, link up with Amarjit ji, because he's incredibly linked to the rest of the world. So social networks like such as Facebook, LinkedIn, and your interactions with experts in the field, I think that's very, very important. So the best start at the intermediate or at the entry level or at the startup level would be to work with an expert as an intern and gain some experience. I think that's fundamental. That's very, very important. So I have really, had the opportunity to work with governments at the national level, government of India, for instance, government of China, many international NGOs, UN, and several African, Latin American, and Middle Eastern countries. These are all wide-ranging experiences, and that experience is something that will really give you that what is required. Now, very often these calls come in short notice, so they come directly from the institutions or publicized through media. Social media, LinkedIn is used widely to promote these opportunities. So I think what is important here is, as an entry-level consultant, you need to be proactive. You need to work very hard. You need to have a very good teamwork skills and collaboration skills. So collaboration is fundamental. You need to have also excellent written and oral communication skills, the ability to communicate. If you don't communicate, it's very hard. I mean, that communication doesn't mean talking to people, but also communicating very effectively in written format is very important. That also requires a lot of critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and so on. And data analysis, I mean, if you have that skill, believe me, I mean, this is going to really be of high value to what you are trying to do. And of course, as we discussed before, your ability to negotiate and develop proposal is also very important. And more important, I think these days it has become like the far more. I think what I have really come across from various agencies, that they give you these assignments in short notice, and the assignments could range from 30 days to 1 year to 3 years, whatever. And then once you are in, then it's all about the discipline of getting things done on time. Means keeping the deadline. I have one thing that I've learned in my life is that actually, if you don't do that, the government is, so for example, when I worked with as the advisor to the government of Rwanda, we had a very clear timeline, and I was late in one of delivering one of the milestones, and and they didn't wait. It was actually my feedback to that particular activity was very crucial, yet they just ignored me. They just moved forward. So that's something that I've. So once you get involved in a project, what you do is you dive deeper, work hard with passion, volunteer. Just offer yourself and contribute, making a difference. Engage in all activities from inception, from the design till the dissemination, and produce a high quality output. That's very important. For intermediate level, all the above said attributes are relevant, but here you are probably taking a lead. You are taking a lead and creating a team and approaching different agencies with business consultancy propositions. I think that's the difference. And here at this point, what is important is to have, apart from that team skills, organizational skills, what is also important is to really think about a budgeting skill, the ability to really, there you may really consult with, chartered accountants or, other financial advisors to get a clear, so you don't really, you have to really budget it very carefully. And that would require, that's like a full course, or, that we can actually discuss when we have some other opportunities. But you will be expected to attend relevant meetings, continue researching for opportunities and building and expanding your network, etc. So, but as you move from there to the advanced professional level, there you are becoming the leading expert in the field. So there, sometimes, you will be invited. So you get lots of invitations to participate in tenders, and they may even approach you to really be the main consultant for developing and implementing a business proposition or proposal. So to summarize, as we are heading towards a very complex, challenging, uncertain, and I would say an interdependent world. Because, so for instance, UK is completely dependent on what is happening in Kerala. Kerala is dependent on what is happening in Nigeria. So because, well, here in this fight against COVID, we are really, really moving to an uncertain kind of era, but there are plenty of opportunities. There will be plenty of opportunities, because this is the time that the government, the business sectors will come forward, because they will be thinking of cost-effective, cost-saving models, and also bringing in expertise to really solve problems. So please do keep your eyes open and grab the opportunities. And please also dare to take risks. And that is very important, and you will find the destination. I think I always sort of refer to Swami Vivekananda, well, Amarjit, you may, we have discussed this on a number of things. It's about, consultancy is all about taking up that one idea, and then making sure that that one idea, you just sleep with it, you dream it, you think of it, you eat it, drink it, whatever. Let the brain, the body, the muscles, nerves, and every part of your body should be of that idea. So you're not thinking about anything else. You're immersed in that idea, and just leave any other idea, alone. And that is the sort of way to success. I'll stop here, and I wish you all the best. And thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amarjit and Professor Sabu. You made this very complex, very important issue of global business look very simple from a layman's perspective. So the way you have put the ideas across, like the new products, new ways of communicating with the clients, supply chains and all, and the kind of cultural awareness that we need to have. Also, we are very fascinated to hear about the 3 levels which Professor Padmadas was talking about. 3 levels at which consultancy would operate here onwards. So that is quite enlightening to hear from you. And more importantly, I'm so fascinated to hear from Mr. Amarjit about the snooker game. So that I never knew that snooker was born in Jabalpur. I've heard about many other games, but not snooker. Thank you for adding that to my general knowledge. and we have few questions, with few very thought-provoking questions, and we'll spend some 10-15 minutes for that. The first question is from Mr. Thomas. He has asked about the sources from where we can get information about different consultancy that is required by different firms.
Yeah, Amarjit, do you want to just take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's here in the UK, we have the British Chambers of Commerce and business chambers who provide information on different types of businesses. Equally, in India, you'll have trade bodies, business bodies. And the other thing is to use the internet to identify who are the main consulting firms in different sectors, in different parts of the world. So as I said, for strategy, you have some of the big consultants like Bain, McKinsey, Boston Consulting. Now, a good way to understand trends within the consultancy sector is, for example, to register for their newsletters, which generally can be free, for instance. And also for those of you who are particularly tech savvy in the audience, to follow them on, say, Twitter, because they often give nuggets and updates. So I think that the two easiest ways to understand more about the evolving consultancy landscape, locally and domestically, one is to reach out to business facilitation bodies, public sector bodies, who would be having knowledge on the sector, or maybe even committees on the sector. But secondly, I would say that go direct to some of the global consulting firms around the world, and they vary for accountancy, for banking, for HR, for strategy. I just mentioned a few, and try and directly follow their insights, but also identify ways that you can engage with them. How can you actually get your foot through the door? How can you, even if it's just from an audience listening perspective, how can you actually make a connection with them so that all of a sudden, from searching where are consultants, what they do, you have become in touch with a consultant for your particular area of interest?
Thank you so much. That was quite useful information. We have got the last question, which I think should be taken next. It is about the kind of discussions that happen today more towards the side of corporate consultancy. So someone has asked about individual consultancy. Suppose if we would like to start a consultancy at an individual level, so how can that how can that be taken forward? That's the question.
So you see, consultants kind of come in all formats and sizes. So even I would say there's a common phrase here we use in the UK, a one-man band. Even a one-person outfit or entity can be an effective consultancy on the proviso of a couple of things. So one is that, you see, to actually set up a consultancy is quite easy. You can register as a company, get a website, you can be a consultant. But what I would call the litmus test is that, do you have that unique selling proposition? Do you have that additional value add? Because you see, setting up a business might be straightforward, but then growing a business, getting your clients, I was commenting on first wins, low-hanging fruit. So I think what you really need to do is identify where is your track record in terms of your experience, or if you don't have one, it's partway. Go and do an internship, go and work with the leading consultants, even pro bono. Try and understand what is their thought process, how do they operate, how do they work. And then establishing is the easy part, because you can set up in this day just through a website and online. But it's actually, how do you then, the question is one of conversion. How do you convert your consultancy, which may be a one-man band, or you may say that, let me come up with a consortium of a dozen of us from different verticals and come up with a flash name and a punchline, a tagline, and let's get to market. But the real issue will be, the real task will be that how can you convert that into tangible business activity and get your first client? And that is where you have to give some careful thoughts and analysis as part of your market research. And even then, when you get your first client, you then need that testimonial, that endorsement to open the door to other businesses. So essentially, you've got to think several steps down the line at the outset.
Thank you so much. You're a great teacher, I must say, because you look things quite simple. So thank you for telling us that individual portfolios are going to matter when someone goes to consultancy from an individual level. Thank you so much for that. So there is another question like, what are the common issues for which industry seeks consultancy?
So you see, there is no one size fits all approach here. For example, what the issues on which businesses would have consulted pre-COVID-19 are completely different now. This global black swan event has pulled into sharp focus every strategy at every level of every organization. So whether you're a startup, or you're a PLC, or you're a global Fortune 500, your strategy, your global growth plan, your trajectory is out of date. So then you need strategic advice and support on different stages of that trajectory. And what will be critical is to look at the current dynamics in the marketplace. So, for example, it's common knowledge that technology solutions, technology engineering, configuration-based services will be on the increase as we come up with new business models, new ways of working and connecting. And these are areas often complex, new areas, uncharted territory, where a business may say that it is justifiable for us to hire a consultancy or a team of consultants to come alongside our leadership team and to work on these particular issues and areas. So it can be as broad as it is long. Sabuji, Professor Padmadas may wish to add to that, given his government perspective with United Nations and WHO.
Yeah, sure. I think, governments as well as business sectors are equally confronted with this challenge of, getting recovered from this crisis. So it is not easy. It is not going to be easy for many organizations to really return to what is known as the normalcy, or in other words, to come back onto that economic curve or the economic curve. You would need to really invest on a lot of areas. Like, for instance, it could be ranging from the human resources part, because there could be like a consultant who is appointed to really seek the right. These days LinkedIn and a few other systems are there to really find experts, but you may be approached actually. So from there to really to resolving business problems within industry and government. Governments have a lot of considerable challenges for solving business problems like propositions, because they work on limited budget and going ahead. For example, many countries, including, I think that also includes the government of Kerala, would really, that kind of the budget allocation is going to be really a big challenge. So because you will have to really come up with new resources and so on. So there will be challenges in terms of limited so in limited budget, what can you achieve? Or in other words, what can you achieve, in an optimal fashion? I think that would be the challenge. But at the global level, you would, I think somebody was asking this question regarding the sources. So if you, for example, if you go to the United Nations website, so they have what is known as the UN job one. So if you just go there, you will find probably today, at the moment as we speak, there will be a lot of consultancy opportunities opening up. And then if you look at the Government of India website, Government of Kerala website sometimes, so you have to be constantly on that search process to really find out what's happening. And that I think it's always, the difficult point is to start. Once you start, then you're like climbing the ladder, because then you will know how the system operates. So first, it is very important to understand how the systems work. And the best way to do that is actually to A, to explore these sources, B, talk to people, talk to professionals, and talk to experts. Do not worry. As I was attending a session, a business innovation session, and there was actually a very interesting message. So, for instance, if you are a 60-year-old CEO, you will have to rely on probably an 18-year-old, young person for advice. So, I think that is very. So, there is no hierarchy here. It's people with knowledge, with skills, with experience. I think they are most wanted. In fact, I repeat the word. You are most wanted. I mean, if you are really, if you are very confident about what you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. We are running short of time, but we'll take one last question, which I think is quite important here. Mr. Vinod, who is a trainer with us, has asked a very important question like, what is a yardstick a consultant uses to calculate cost of a particular assignment?
That's a very good question. And you see, pricing points vary on so many factors and variables. And typically you have to ask yourself, well, who is the client? Is the client a startup who's just started up and so they will be short on funding and fees to hire in leading consultants? Or is your client a global Fortune 500 who is likely to have big budgets and big resources? So you have to look at it from the perspective of who is the client, who is the customer first. And you have to be flexible with your charging structures. So typically when IBG charge, we look at obviously the client's position and situation, and then we look at the scope, the weight and bandwidth of the project. So how many man hours will be required? What type of experts are required? If it's a defense sector project, then will we need to hire in additional experts as a backup team? What is the timeline of the milestones that need to be delivered? Does a report have to be assembled, evaluated, compiled, and presented within 30 days? So what is the timeline of the project? What are the resources required for the project? What is the sector in question? But I would often say, look at it from the perspective of who is the client, because the aim should be to create longevity in the relationship. So for example, in our line of work, we have to be very flexible with charging structures, not only to remain competitive, but to actually take the long haul, take the long-term view, because actually if you can get a foot in the door through a particular project, then you have a walking, talking ambassador and endorser of your consultancy. And so I think that in the early stages, the startup, you should be thinking far more long-term, strategic and holistic, rather than saying that, let me give a pricing point where there's a good profit or a good return. And always focus on who is the client.
Yes.
We need to have a special pricing as well for COVID time.
Absolutely.
Just to quickly add, I think, sometimes, as we, one thing that I mentioned about at the basic level or at the entry level, I think so you'll have to be you need to be sensitive to the current economic climate. So, for example, within the era of COVID or post-COVID, you will have to really make sure that you adjust your budget so that sometimes you may have to lower the budget. But one point that Amarjit, you may agree with me is that, what happens, for example, JP Morgan and other international consultancies where they undertake a lot of, so they have a minimum threshold, so they won't really undertake consultants. So some consultants are actually approached not because of so I think budget is actually a constraint, but sometimes what happens is that because they look at the quality of the output, so by investing, let's say 1 lakh rupee, you are saving, for instance, 1 crore or 5 crores, whatever. So that's the psyche. So, and the other important aspect is the quality of the deliverable, the quality of the product that you deliver will actually. So if you are in that ladder of quality assurance, then then I don't think that you will need to negotiate, or the other party will negotiate, because it will happen just as it just like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So one person who has posed a question has asked about your contact details, but I can very well provide the contact details to him. Maybe he's a budding consultant or a prospective consultant in the post-COVID era. You can meet him somewhere at some point of time. So happy to hear such a feedback from him. It means that this session has been extremely fruitful, because such questions coming up from people. And we normally in our general webinars, we get more people, but this being a niche area and a very small segment, I think the participation or maximum was 120 today. But we find very interested people. I was just going through the list of attendees. The people who are very serious about this global business. And also, we like, as we already said in the beginning, before Professor Sabu came here, would love to have you here for a very serious engagement, maybe with FICCI and CIA on board. We'll invite you for a very good discussion on this particular area of global consulting or global business in the light of Community Skill Park developing on that line. So thank you so much for spending so much time with us, and thank you for being so sincere and committed for the cause, because we saw you on screen 10 minutes ahead of time. We know that it is early times in UK. You also said you are enjoying the birds chirping, the sound of birds coming in. So you can make this a habit as well. And if you want, I can give you alerts every day when at 6:30 a.m. So thank you so much, Mr. Amarjit. We hope to see you more. This was a very productive engagement, and the Government of Kerala, Department of Higher Education is indebted to you for these valuable words. You spoke about global business through snooker, through news analysis, and you are a good teacher explaining things in a very simple way. I wish there were more people listening to you. I wish I could have invited more industry people to this particular engagement. And anyway, let this be a very good beginning. And Professor Sabu, your commitment, we always go with you, and we always expect that your commitment is there with us. We hope to see you more. Thank you so much. Mr. Amarjit, would you say something at the close of this meeting?
I would just like to say the pleasure was entirely mine. And it was a wonderful opportunity to connect with the audience, with the institutions, and also, in fact, with people like yourself and Professor Padmadas, who are the real power brokers between the UK and India. And I think that my last comment would simply be in terms of COVID-19, whilst yes, it is challenging and turbulent, but somebody once told me that when a storm comes, you have two options. You either head for the cave or you build a windmill. I would like to leave it on that energetic remark. And I look forward to joining you in the flesh in the first immediate foreseeable future. And then we will speak more while sipping some very fine tea, no doubt. Good luck. And my best wishes to the faculty, to the team, to the audience. And we will certainly keep in touch. And our best wishes and best thoughts remain with you at this difficult and challenging time.
Let me also add that I've become a great fan of you, because after hearing you for this very short time, and that on a personal front, I also have benefited a lot. I was also thinking about positioning myself as a consultant in the area of education and consultancy. So this has benefited me a lot. Thank you so much.
Anything we can do, I remain at your disposal on that strand.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sabu. Thank you.
Thank you. As always, I'm at the state's disposal. I'm at the country's disposal.
And thanks to all participants who has been here, because it is already 10 minutes past 12, and we still find more than 70 participants listening to all the end closing statements and all. So thanks to all those participants. for attending today's very valuable session. My only request to these participants is to keep listening to such exciting discussions in the future with Professor Amarjit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Namaskaram.
Thank you.